Think about this for a moment. In our grandparents' time, poverty was about a lack of access, a lack of jobs, a lack of education, a lack of opportunity. But in our time, in this exact moment in history, poverty looks different. You live in a world where knowledge is free, tools are everywhere, and opportunities stretch further than they ever have. Yet millions remain broke, stuck, stagnant. Why? Because the new poverty doesn't come from lack of access, it comes from lack of focus. Distraction is the modern poverty trap, and the cruelest part is, it doesn't feel like a trap while you're in it. It feels normal. Distraction seduces you with tiny hits of pleasure, likes, scrolls, notifications. Each one feels harmless, but each one slices away at your potential. You think you're just taking a 5-minute break, but what you're really doing is scattering your attention into 1,000 fragments. And here's the psychological truth. A fragmented mind cannot create wealth. It cannot build anything lasting. Because wealth, whether it's financial, emotional, or spiritual, is built through sustained attention over time. Break that attention, and you break the possibility of progress. Neuroscience shows us that every time your brain is interrupted, it takes anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to return to deep focus. Now imagine this cycle happening 10, 20, 50 times a day. That's not just lost minutes, it's lost mastery. It's lost momentum. You never get into the deep state where breakthroughs happen, where creative solutions arise, where the real value is produced. Instead, you skim across the surface of life, busy but not productive, moving but not advancing. And this is how distraction robs you, silently, invisibly, one fractured moment at a time. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. In the modern world, distraction is the dizziness of abundance. You have so many options, so many paths, so many voices pulling at you, that the very abundance of opportunity makes you poorer, because you never commit fully to one direction. You dabble, you skim, you consume, but you don't build, and in that sense, distraction is not just poverty of wealth, it's poverty of the soul. It leaves you scattered, restless, unfulfilled. But here's the part we often ignore. Distraction is not just stealing your present, it's stealing your future. Every time you give in to it, you're not just losing a few minutes, you're pushing back the life you say you want. You're postponing your vision, your freedom, your financial independence. You're training your brain to live in reaction, not creation. And if you do that long enough, your future self pays the bill. 10 years from now, when you wonder why you're still struggling, why the breakthrough never came, the answer won't be lack of opportunity. It'll be the 1,000 tiny distractions you treated as harmless. Think about the cost of this at scale. A distracted workforce is an underpaid workforce. A distracted business owner is a broke business owner. A distracted student becomes an unfulfilled adult. And on the personal level, distraction makes you settle. It convinces you to tolerate mediocrity because your attention is always elsewhere. You're never fully present enough to demand more of yourself. You stay in average jobs, average relationships, average routines, not because you lack potential, but because you lack focus long enough to change. That's how distraction keeps you broke, not just in your wallet, but in your standards. So the question becomes, how do you escape the trap? The answer isn't complicated, but it is difficult. You have to treat your focus like your wealth, guard it. Protect it, invest it wisely. If money wasted compounds into debt, attention wasted compounds into regret. That's the economy you're living in now, the attention economy. The platforms aren't selling products, they're selling you. They're auctioning your focus to the highest bidder, and every time you give it away freely, you're the one paying the price. Here's the shift. When you realize that your focus is the most valuable currency you own, you start spending it differently. You stop giving it to gossip, to endless scrolling, to distractions disguised as productivity. You start channeling it into one clear direction, one meaningful pursuit, one thing at a time. And when you do, you'll find that wealth, in every sense, begins to accumulate, because wealth isn't built in scattered minutes. It's built in concentrated hours, days, years of consistent attention. The truth is, distraction will always be easier than focus. It's designed that way, but easy choices create hard lives, and hard choices, the choice to say no, the choice to lock in, the choice to stay focused, create easier, richer lives down the line. Every time you choose focus, you are not just resisting distraction. You are buying freedom. You're buying time, you're buying growth, you're buying the life that a scattered mind will never be able to afford. So remember this. Broke people aren't always broke because they're lazy or unlucky. More often, they're broke because they've allowed the world to fracture their attention. They've spent their focus on everything except the one thing that mattered. Don't let that be your story. Don't let distraction write your future. Because at the end of the day, the choice is brutally simple. Stay focused or stay broke. Motivation is seductive. It feels powerful. It gives you that temporary surge of energy, the adrenaline rush that convinces you change is finally possible. We all know the feeling. Watch a video, hear a story, read a quote, and suddenly you're fired up, ready to conquer the world. But here's the problem. Motivation is a spark, not a fire. It burns bright, then fades, and when it fades, most people collapse with it. They mistake the emotional high for transformation, when in reality, transformation doesn't care about how you feel in the moment. If you want to build wealth, real wealth, the kind that lasts, you cannot depend on motivation. You need discipline. Because discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline doesn't wait for the right mood, the right circumstances, the right inspiration. Discipline is commitment in motion. It is the act of showing up repeatedly, especially when you don't feel like it. And that's the paradox. The days you least feel like it are the days that shape you the most. Psychology has long shown us that humans are wired to avoid discomfort. Our brains are built to conserve energy, to seek pleasure and dodge pain. That's why motivation feels so good. It aligns with the brain's craving for a dopamine hit. But wealth, progress, mastery, these live on the other side of discomfort, and the only bridge to that side is discipline. Discipline is the deliberate choice to override instinct, to do what your future self needs, not what your present self wants. Think about the people who have built extraordinary wealth. Do you think they were motivated every day? Do you think they woke up every morning excited to work? Of course not. They weren't driven by mood, they were driven by systems, by habits, by discipline. They created structures that made showing up non-negotiable, and over time, that discipline compounded into results that motivation alone could never have sustained. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. That's the distinction. Motivation relies on how you feel. Discipline relies on who you are willing to become. It's identity-based. When you say, "I am disciplined," you're not describing a mood, you're describing a way of being. And identity always outlasts emotion. There's also a deeper philosophical truth here. Motivation is tied to desire. Discipline is tied to freedom. Desire always leaves you wanting more, chasing the next high, the next burst of energy. Discipline, on the other hand, is liberation. Because once you master discipline, you no longer wait for circumstances to dictate your actions. You are free from the tyranny of moods, free from the randomness of inspiration. You control the direction of your life, not your fleeting impulses. That freedom, that stability, is where wealth begins. Wealth, after all, is not built in one grand moment of inspiration. It is built in the quiet repetition of consistent action. It's the hours no one sees, the sacrifices no one applauds, the decisions no one celebrates. Discipline creates the compound effect. Each disciplined act may feel small, even invisible, but together they form the foundation of abundance. Motivation can start the engine, but only discipline keeps the vehicle moving mile after mile. Here's the irony: people wait to feel motivated before they act, but action itself is what creates motivation. When you show up, when you start moving, when you practice discipline, motivation often follows, not the other way around. Waiting to feel motivated is like waiting for the wind to blow in the right direction. Discipline is raising your own sails and steering regardless of the conditions. This is why discipline is so rare. It's not glamorous. It doesn't give you instant gratification. It demands sacrifice. It demands repetition. It demands the humility to do the boring work again and again. But that's also why it's so powerful, because so few people are willing to pay that price. And the marketplace always rewards what is rare. Discipline is the currency of wealth precisely because it is scarce. And here's the practical truth: you don't need to be disciplined in everything. You just need to be disciplined in the right things. In the few things that actually move the needle. People exhaust themselves trying to do too much, then wonder why they burn out. Discipline is not about saying yes to everything. It's about having the strength to say no. No to distractions, no to impulses, no to the things that pull you away from your vision. True discipline is selective focus, the power to channel your energy where it counts most. So if you want to break free from the cycle of staying broke, stop chasing motivation. Stop waiting for the emotional high to carry you. It won't. Build the discipline to carry yourself. Build the daily structures, the non-negotiable habits, the rituals that anchor you even when your emotions waver. Because wealth is not a reward for how inspired you feel. It's the consequence of how disciplined you are willing to be. And here's the closing thought I want you to hold on to. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline is freedom. If you can master discipline, you can outlast every distraction, outwork every competitor, and outgrow every limitation. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. And every day you decide whether to cross it or stay broke. Focus is not just about paying attention, it's about multiplying value. Most people think the difference between success and mediocrity is how much effort you put in. But the truth is, effort without focus is like pouring water into a leaking bucket. You can keep filling it all day long, but nothing accumulates. The bucket never gets full. That's how most people live, busy, exhausted, but broke. Not because they aren't working hard, but because their work is scattered. Now imagine that same water, but instead of leaking, it's directed through a narrow pipe. Suddenly, it has pressure, it has force, it has impact. That's what focus does. It takes the same energy, the same time, the same hours you already have, and it magnifies them. It's not about doing more. It's about doing with greater intensity, greater precision, greater depth. Focus turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. There's a psychological principle here worth understanding. The human brain is not designed for multitasking. It's designed for sequential depth. When you split your attention across too many things, your cognitive performance drops sharply. You may feel productive, but you're actually operating at a fraction of your potential. True breakthroughs only come when your attention is undivided. That's why some of the greatest thinkers, inventors, and builders in history were known not for doing 100 things, but for committing relentlessly to one pursuit until they mastered it. Think of a magnifying glass. On its own, it's just a piece of glass, harmless, but hold it steady under the sun, and suddenly it can ignite fire. Not because the sunlight became stronger, but because the focus made it powerful. Your mind works the same way. Scattered across distractions, your energy is harmless. Directed with focus, it becomes fire, and fire creates change. It reshapes your environment, it builds, it transforms. Focus is also the great equalizer. Not everyone starts with the same resources, the same networks, the same opportunities, but anyone can choose to concentrate fully on one path, and that choice alone can create leverage that outpaces privilege. A focused person with fewer resources will often surpass a distracted person with many. Because wealth is not distributed to the busiest, it's distributed to the most focused. But here's the hard truth. Most people never get to experience the full power of focus because it feels uncomfortable. Focus demands sacrifice. To go deep on one thing, you must ignore 1,000 others, and the modern world makes that almost unbearable. Every day, you're bombarded with options, noise, demands for your attention. The temptation to scatter yourself is constant. And yet, that's the very reason focus is so valuable. It's rare, it's scarce, and just like anything scarce, the marketplace rewards it. Philosophically, focus is about presence. To be focused is to be fully here, fully invested in this moment, this task, this vision. And presence creates power, because when you are fully present, your mind enters a state of flow. Time collapses, distractions fade, and you produce work that feels almost effortless, yet carries immense weight. That's when you stop just participating in life and start creating it. This is where value multiplication happens. A distracted worker produces average output. A focused worker produces exceptional output in less time. A distracted entrepreneur builds ideas that collapse under half-finished effort. A focused entrepreneur builds systems that scale. A distracted investor chases noise and loses money. A focused investor holds conviction and builds wealth. The same principle applies everywhere. Focus compounds value the way interest compounds money. The longer you sustain it, the more exponential the results become. But let me be clear, focus is not intensity for a moment. It's consistency over time. Anybody can focus for an hour. The real test is whether you can sustain that focus for months, years, decades. That's where greatness emerges. Because sustained focus compounds into mastery, and mastery is what the world pays for. Not dabblers, not scatterbrains, not people who sort of commit. The world pays those who have honed their craft, their business, their vision through years of concentrated attention. Ask yourself, What would happen if you gave the next 5 years of your life to one pursuit with unwavering focus? No distractions, no half-hearted efforts, no endless starting and stopping. Just 5 years of consistent, disciplined focus. The answer is simple. Your life would be unrecognizable. Because 5 years of scattered effort might leave you in the same place you started. But 5 years of focused effort would build wealth, freedom, and identity on a level most people never experience. And that's the choice in front of you. Every day, you decide whether your energy will scatter or concentrate. Whether you'll leak your potential into distractions, or whether you'll multiply it into value, wealth, progress, freedom. They're not given to the busiest, they're given to the most focused. So let me leave you with this thought. Focus is the great multiplier. The sharper it is, the faster your life accelerates. Scatter it and you'll stay stuck. Direct it and you'll ignite fire. And that fire will either burn you forward, or you'll spend your life watching others pass you by. At the end of the day, your results are not a reflection of how hard you work, but of how deeply you focus. We often think the greatest risks in life come from action. Starting the business, leaving the job, investing in yourself, making the bold move. We convince ourselves that doing something new is dangerous, that failure lies on the other side of trying. But if you look closely, you'll see that the real danger rarely comes from action. It comes from inaction. It comes from waiting, postponing, hesitating. It comes from staying where you are, convincing yourself that comfort is safety. The cost of inaction is always higher, because while action carries the risk of failure, inaction carries the guarantee of decay. Here's the paradox. People avoid action because they fear loss. They don't want to lose money, time, energy, reputation. But by doing nothing, they lose something far more valuable: momentum, opportunity, and most of all, time. And time is the one currency you can never earn back. Every day spent standing still is a silent debt accumulating interest. At first it feels small, almost invisible, but over years that debt becomes unbearable. You look back and realize you've paid with your potential. That's the most expensive price a human being can pay. Psychologically, inaction feels safe because it reduces immediate discomfort. The brain is wired to avoid uncertainty, and action always introduces uncertainty. But here's the truth: life doesn't freeze just because you stand still. The world keeps moving, the economy keeps moving, other people keep moving. So inaction isn't stillness, it's falling behind in disguise. And the longer you delay, the heavier the cost becomes. That's why regret, not failure, is the emotion that haunts people at the end of their lives. Regret is the bill that inaction sends years later. Philosophically, inaction is a refusal of responsibility. It's the belief that by not choosing, you're avoiding consequence. But as Kierkegaard said, not choosing is itself a choice. And that choice has consequences. You can't escape the cost. You can only decide when you want to pay it. Do you want to pay now in the form of discipline, effort, risk, and temporary discomfort? Or do you want to pay later in the form of regret, stagnation, and wasted years? Either way, there's a price. But the later you pay, the higher the interest. And let's be honest, most people aren't broke because they never tried. They're broke because they never tried long enough. They started, stopped, hesitated, waited for the perfect moment that never came. Inaction became a habit, and that habit became a life. That's how you wake up one day realizing you've spent decades in survival mode, trading your dreams for a paycheck, your ambition for convenience, your freedom for the illusion of safety. That's the cost of inaction, not just money lost, but identity lost, wealth, freedom, growth. These don't come from avoiding risk. They come from leaning into it with focus and discipline. Yes, action carries the possibility of failure, but it also carries the possibility of success. Inaction carries neither. It keeps you in limbo where nothing changes, where nothing grows. And the irony is that limbo feels like safety at first, but it's actually the slowest form of failure. Because at least when you fail through action, you learn, you adapt, you grow. When you fail through inaction, you learn nothing. You simply fade. Think about it. Every opportunity you ignore doesn't just disappear. It often becomes someone else's gain. Every idea you delay acting on is an idea that dies in your head while someone else brings theirs to life. The world doesn't wait for you, and that's the brutal reality. While you hesitate, others are moving forward. And when you finally decide to start, you're not only late, you're unprepared. But here's the shift. Once you understand that inaction carries a cost far greater than action, hesitation loses its power. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and you start asking, "What if I wait another year and nothing changes?" That question cuts deeper, because failure hurts in the short term, but inaction starves you in the long term. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. So let's bring this home. The choice between focus and distraction, between discipline and laziness, between action and inaction, it's not abstract. It's not philosophical in the ivory tower sense. It's practical, it's personal, it's financial. It's the difference between staying broke or building freedom. And the reality is, most people don't lose because they lack the ability. They lose because they never start. They wait, they hesitate, they avoid the discomfort of action and trade it for the far greater discomfort of regret. And that's what I want you to carry with you. The cost of inaction is always higher. Every day you delay, you're borrowing from your future self, and one day that bill comes due. Don't let your future self pay for your present hesitation. Take the risk now. Do the work now. Stay focused now. Because one day you will look back, and the only question that will matter is not, "What did I fail at?" but "What did I never give myself the chance to do?" At the end of the day, the greatest danger is not falling. It's standing still. Choose action, because if you don't, the price you'll pay won't just be money. It will be your life.